I never thought much about luck. Luck was for gamblers and dreamers, and I was neither. I was just a guy who worked with his hands, built houses for other people, and came home to my small apartment, where my wife, Anna, was usually waiting with dinner on the table. Life wasn't glamorous, but it was stable. And stability was enough for me. Then, on a random Thursday evening, everything changed. I was standing in line at the gas station after work, waiting to pay for a pack of beer and a bag of chips, when I saw the lottery machine. On a whim, I bought a ticket. Just one. I don't even know why. I'd played once or twice before, but I never expected anything from it. That night, I scratched the numbers while sitting at the kitchen table, expecting nothing. But as each number revealed itself, my heart started pounding. Match 1. Match 2. Match 3, 4, 5. My hands were shaking. I checked again. And again. The numbers were right. $50 million. I sat there in silence for what felt like hours, staring at the ticket. The reality of it didn't sink in immediately. My whole life, I'd worked hard for every dollar I made. And now, in an instant, I had more money than I could ever dream of. When Anna walked into the kitchen, I barely noticed. She looked at me curiously, then down at the ticket in my hand. "What's that?" I swallowed. "A lottery ticket." She laughed. "Don't tell me you actually won something." I just nodded. Her smile faded. "Wait. How much?" I looked at her, my voice barely above a whisper. $50 million. Her reaction was immediate. Her eyes widened, her lips parted in shock, and then she threw herself at me, wrapping her arms around my neck, pressing kisses against my face. "Oh my God, Henry! This is unbelievable! We're rich!" For the first time, I let myself believe it. We were rich. Or at least I thought we were. I didn't know then that this win wouldn't just change our bank account. It would change everything. It would ruin everything. And it would show me the truth about the woman I thought I knew. The first few days after the win felt unreal. I went to work like nothing had happened, but inside I was buzzing. I hadn't even cashed in the ticket yet. I wanted to be smart about it, talk to a lawyer, figure out what to do next. But the moment Anna knew about the money, things started to change. At first, it was subtle. She became softer, sweeter, more affectionate than she had been in years. "Henry, do you want coffee?" she asked me the next morning, already in the kitchen before I woke up. Anna never made me coffee. In fact, she usually slept in while I got ready for work. But now she was up early, dressed nicely, hair done. She smiled at me like she used to when we first got married. Sure," I said, sitting at the table. She placed the cup in front of me and kissed my cheek. Then came the questions. "So, when are you going to claim the money?" she asked, sitting across from me, her eyes bright. "I mean, we should probably start looking at houses, right? Maybe a new car?" I sipped my coffee, taking my time before answering. "I want to talk to a lawyer first. Make sure we do this right." Her smile faltered for half a second, just a blink. But I saw it. "Oh. Yeah. That makes sense," she said quickly, stirring her own coffee. "I was just thinking, you don't have to work anymore, Henry. We could start fresh. Travel. Do things we never could before." I studied her. I'd never heard her talk like this. She never cared much about luxury or travel before. We had always lived simply, and I thought she liked it that way. But now, there was a hunger in her voice. I chalked it up to excitement. After all, who wouldn't be thrilled at a life-changing win? But something about it made my stomach twist. And then, a week later, I found the message. It happened by accident. Anna had left her phone on the couch while she was in the shower. A message popped up, and out of habit, I glanced at it. "Mark Davis, now we have money. Soon he will not suspect anything." My veins went cold. I stared at the name. Mark Davis. Who the hell was Mark Davis? I picked up the phone, my hands shaking, and scrolled up. My heart pounded with every word I read. Anna, I love you. Mark, I love you too. Just be patient. He won't see it coming. I put the phone down like it was on fire. My mind reeled. My wife had a lover. And now that I had millions, they were planning something. Planning something against me. I heard the shower turn off. Footsteps in the hallway. I quickly put the phone back exactly where it was and forced myself to breathe. Anna walked in, wrapped in a towel, smiling at me like nothing had changed. But everything had. I wasn't just a husband anymore. I was a target. I felt like I was standing on the edge of a cliff, looking down at a life I no longer recognized. My wife, the woman I had loved for 12 years, was a stranger to me now. Every smile, every touch, every soft word she gave me was a lie, a carefully crafted act designed to keep me blind. I played along. I had to. If she knew I had seen the messages, she would change her strategy. So, I went through the motions, nodding when she talked about houses, agreeing when she mentioned luxury cars. Inside, though, my mind was racing. The days passed in a haze. At night, I lay awake next to her, staring at the ceiling while she slept peacefully, unaware that I knew. My stomach twisted at the thought of her wrapped in someone else's arms, whispering the same lies into his ear. Who was Mark Davis? How long had this been going on? What exactly were they planning? One evening, I pretended to leave for work early but circled back to the apartment. I waited in the hallway, my ears straining for any sound. It didn't take long. As soon as she thought I was gone, I heard her on the phone, her voice hushed but urgent. She wasn't just talking to him. She was making plans. And those plans involved getting rid of me. Something dark settled in my chest. I had spent my life being the good guy, the reliable one, the man who worked hard and never asked for more than what he earned. And now, because of that, I had become easy prey. I wasn't going to let it happen. If Anna thought I was blind, I would let her believe it. If she thought I was weak, I would let her believe that too. But I was going to take control. And when the time was right, I would make her regret ever thinking I was a fool. Knowing the truth and acting like I didn't was the hardest thing I had ever done. Every morning, I kissed Anna on the cheek, just like always. Every evening, I listened to her talk about the future as if we were still a team. But inside, something inside me had cracked, and there was no putting it back together. I wasn't a husband anymore. I was a man waiting for his moment. The first thing I needed to do was gather information. I couldn't afford to act on impulse. So I started small. I went through Anna's things when she was out. Nothing obvious, no love letters or hidden photos, but her emails told me more than she ever would. Bank statements. Transfers to an unknown account. Money trickling away, little by little. She wasn't just planning to leave me, she was planning to strip me of everything first. Mark Davis wasn't just some fling. He was orchestrating this. I dug deeper, using every free moment I had. Mark's name led me to a business in the next town over. A real estate office. He was a broker, someone who knew how to move money, how to hide assets. Exactly the kind of man you'd want if you were planning to take $50 million and disappear. I wasn't dealing with amateurs. That realization settled in my stomach like lead. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment betrayal. Anna had been planning this long before the lottery win. Maybe she had never loved me at all. Maybe I had been nothing more than a stepping stone, a safe bet until something better came along. I clenched my fists. She had underestimated me. They both had. If they wanted to play a game, I would let them. But they wouldn't like how it ended. The hardest part of pretending was controlling my anger. Every moment I spent with Anna felt like an act of betrayal, not just hers, but mine. I had to smile, to touch her, to respond like nothing had changed, even though every cell in my body screamed for revenge. But I knew better than to act on emotion. If I did, she would see it. She would adjust. And I couldn't allow that. So I kept playing the fool. Anna, for her part, was better than I ever gave her credit for. She was patient. Calculated. She didn't rush me to claim the winnings, at least not in a way that would raise suspicion. Instead, she played the long game, planting seeds. "You should take some time off work," she said one morning over breakfast. "You've worked hard your whole life, Henry. You deserve a break." I nodded. "Maybe you're right. You don't have to rush into anything," she continued, stirring her coffee. "We can figure everything out together." I nearly laughed at the word together. She wanted me relaxed, off guard. And most importantly, she wanted me to sign over control of the money. I wouldn't. Instead, I used her own patience against her. I told her I wanted to be smart with our money, that I needed to meet with financial advisors, make plans. She couldn't push too hard without revealing her hand, so she nodded, smiled, and waited. That gave me time. And I needed every second of it. I spent my evenings digging. Mark Davis was a man who had built his life on deception. He had a wife once, but she vanished 5 years ago under suspicious circumstances. No charges were ever filed, but the whispers were there. A sudden influx of money. A life insurance payout. And then a new life with someone else. A pattern. And now, my wife was tangled in it. I started watching them. Tracking them. When Anna said she was meeting a friend for lunch, I followed. She wasn't meeting a friend. She was meeting him. A quiet cafe, tucked away from prying eyes. They sat close. Talked in hushed voices. She smiled at him the way she used to smile at me. I forced myself to stand there and watch. Hatred is a strange thing. It doesn't come in one big explosion. It seeps in, drip by drip, until it poisons everything. I wasn't just angry anymore. I was ready. They thought I was their pawn. They had no idea I was about to turn the whole board against them. Patience was never my strong suit, but I knew I had to be careful. If I tipped my hand too soon, they would disappear before I had the chance to act. I couldn't let that happen. So I did what any man in my position would do. I started laying my own trap. The first thing I did was move the money. Anna thought she had time. She thought I was still figuring things out, still hesitant, still the same simple man who had spent his life breaking his back for a steady paycheck. But while she was busy sneaking around with Mark, I was making sure she would never get her hands on a single dollar. I hired a lawyer, a good one. Not some flashy guy from a billboard, but a man who specialized in asset protection and high-net-worth divorces. I told him I wanted the money secured in a trust, locked away so that only I had control. He didn't ask questions. He just made it happen. By the time I walked out of his office, my winnings were out of reach. Anna could smile at me all she wanted. She could bat her eyes, whisper sweet words, press her body against mine at night. None of it mattered. The money was gone from her grasp, and she didn't even know it. I almost felt sorry for her. Almost. I needed more, though. I needed proof. Solid, undeniable proof that she and Mark were conspiring against me. So, I set up a meeting of my own. A private investigator. The man was older, rough around the edges, the kind of guy who had seen enough of the world to know exactly what I needed without me having to say much. I gave him the names, the locations, the details. His expression didn't change when I told him I suspected my wife was cheating. He had heard it all before. But when I told him I thought they were planning something bigger, something that could leave me with nothing, he leaned forward, finally interested. "I'll find out everything," he said. "And when I do, you'll know exactly what you're dealing with." It was a strange thing, handing my life over to someone else to dissect. But I needed answers, and I needed them fast. Because I had a feeling that whatever Anna and Mark were planning, they were getting close to making their move. And when they did, I had to be ready. I didn't have to wait long. Within days, the investigators started sending me information. Photos. Phone records. Meeting locations. It was worse than I imagined. Anna wasn't just sneaking off to see Mark once or twice a week, she was practically living a double life. The texts they exchanged weren't just about the future they were planning together, but about me. How to keep me in the dark. How to get what they needed. How to make sure I never saw it coming. The investigator even managed to get audio. A recording of a conversation between them, clear as day. He's too trusting, Anna said, her voice light, casual. He's already talking about setting up accounts for the money. If I play it right, I can get access before he realizes what's happening. Good, Mark replied. But we need to be careful. He's not stupid. Oh, please. Henry's a good man, but he's simple. He won't see it coming. My stomach clenched. I had spent 12 years thinking I knew the woman sleeping next to me. And now here she was, talking about me like I was some clueless idiot she could string along until she got what she wanted. But the worst part? They weren't planning to just take the money and leave. They were planning something else. Something final. Mark's voice dropped lower in the recording. If we do this right, there won't be anything left to fight over. No loose ends. Loose ends. That's what I was to them. A problem to be dealt with. My blood ran cold. I had been so focused on the betrayal, so obsessed with making sure they didn't steal my money, that I had missed the bigger picture. This wasn't just about greed. This was about getting rid of me. I didn't go home right away. I couldn't. Instead, I sat in my truck, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white, trying to process what I had just heard. It wasn't real. It couldn't be. Anna, my Anna, wasn't capable of something like this. But the evidence was right there, playing through my speakers. Her voice, clear as day. Her laugh. The way she spoke about me like I was nothing more than an obstacle. That was the moment I stopped thinking like a husband. I had spent days, weeks, pretending to be blind, waiting for my chance to strike. But now, I understood, this wasn't a game anymore. This was survival. Anna and Mark thought they had everything under control. They thought I was a fool. They had no idea that I was about to turn the tables on them. I didn't sleep that night. I lay next to Anna, listening to her breathe, my mind running through every possible scenario. I had planned to outsmart her, to make sure she didn't take my money. But now, the stakes were higher. She wasn't just trying to rob me. She was trying to erase me. And the worst part? She wasn't in a rush. She was patient, calculated, playing the role of a loving wife while secretly planning my downfall. I thought back to all the little things I had ignored over the years. The way she had slowly distanced herself from me, the nights she claimed she was working late, the sudden interest in our finances. I had chalked it up to normal changes in a marriage. But it had never been normal, had it? She had been waiting for the right moment. And now that I had won the lottery, she had found it. I had to act. But first, I had to make her believe she was still winning. The next morning, I played my part like nothing was wrong. I kissed her goodbye, went to work, and even sent her a text telling her I missed her. It made me sick, but I needed her to feel safe. Meanwhile, I put the next phase of my plan into motion. First, I went back to my lawyer and made sure that if anything happened to me, Anna would get nothing. The money was locked away in a trust, with my sister Laura listed as the beneficiary if I died. Then I called Laura. She was the only person in my life who had ever questioned Anna. Over the years, she had made little comments, nothing serious, just observations about how Anna had changed, how she seemed distant. I had brushed them off. Now I knew she had been right all along. When I told her everything, there was silence on the other end of the line. Then, finally, she spoke. "You need to be careful, Henry." "I know." "No," she said, her voice sharper this time. "You don't. If they're planning to get rid of you, you can't just sit back and wait. You have to do something now." I exhaled slowly. "I already have a plan." She didn't ask what it was. Maybe she knew better than to press. "Just promise me one thing," she said. "Whatever happens, don't let them see it coming." I smiled grimly. "I won't." Because for the first time since this nightmare started, I wasn't just waiting to catch them. I was going to make sure they paid for what they had planned. And I wasn't going to play nice. Once I made my decision, everything became clear. There was no more hesitation, no more questioning. Anna and Mark had crossed the line, and there was no coming back from it. But if I wanted to win, I had to be smart. I had to make them believe their plan was still working. So, I gave them what they wanted, just enough to keep them comfortable. I told Anna I was finally ready to start moving the money. I made a big show of being overwhelmed, of trusting her to help me figure it all out. I let her think she was still pulling the strings. She played her part well. She listened, nodded, reassured me that we needed to be cautious. She even suggested we meet with a financial planner, one she had picked out. Probably someone connected to Mark. I agreed, smiling the whole time. She thought she was leading me exactly where she wanted. She had no idea I was already 10 steps ahead. That night, I made another visit to my investigator. I told him I needed everything on Mark Davis, his past, his debts, his weaknesses. I wanted to know where he went when he wasn't with Anna, who he talked to, what he spent his money on. If there was a single crack in his armor, I was going to find it. And I did. Mark had secrets of his own. He wasn't just a scam artist, he was in deep with the wrong people. Gambling debts, unpaid loans, money funneled through fake businesses. There were people looking for him. Dangerous people. And now, I had their names. This was my way in. If Mark thought he could play with my life like it was some game, he was about to learn what it felt like to lose. The next step was simple. I had to push Anna just a little further. I started acting careless. Leaving financial documents out, talking about big purchases, making it seem like I was rushing into things without thinking. And then, the final move, I casually mentioned that I had set up an account to transfer some of the money into. Just in case something happened. Her eyes lit up, just for a second. She tried to hide it, but I saw it. I had just given her an opening. And I knew she was going to take it. She and Mark thought they were playing a perfect con. They thought they had all the power. They had no idea they were walking straight into a trap. And when it snapped shut, I wasn't just going to take back control. I was going to destroy them both. Anna thought she was being subtle. Over the next few days, I saw the change in her, little things at first. The way she lingered near my phone when I wasn't looking. The sudden interest in my emails, my meetings. She was searching for something. Confirmation. She wanted to know where the money was, how she could access it, and how much longer she had to pretend to love me before making her move. I let her think she was making progress. One night, I left my laptop open on the kitchen counter, accidentally, displaying a fake document, an account in my name with a hefty balance, just waiting to be transferred. I made sure she saw it before I closed the screen, acting as if I hadn't noticed her watching. That was all it took. The next day, while I was at work, my investigator caught her in the act. She met with Mark in a parking lot, slipping into his car, talking fast, animated. He recorded the whole thing. "He's moving the money soon," she said, her voice filled with excitement. "It's happening faster than I thought." "Are you sure he won't see it coming?" Mark asked. "Henry's not a risk-taker," she scoffed. "He trusts me. He still believes I love him." The word stung, but I forced myself to push the emotion aside. This wasn't about heartbreak anymore. This was about finishing this. I made my next move that evening. I came home with a bottle of wine and takeout from her favorite restaurant. I told her I had a surprise, that I was finally transferring the first chunk of money into the account she had, accidentally, seen. She played it perfectly, widening her eyes in surprise, pretending she wasn't already 5 steps ahead. "That's amazing," she said, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. "I know this has been overwhelming for you, Henry, but I just want you to know. I'm proud of you." I almost laughed. Proud of me. For what? For being her fool? Instead, I nodded, forcing a sheepish smile. "Yeah, it feels good to finally move forward." I pretended to sip my wine, watching as she did the same. She had no idea that by tomorrow morning, I would have everything I needed to end this. Because the money I was transferring? It was a decoy account. A direct link to my investigator. By the time Anna and Mark made their move, the authorities would already have everything they needed. And when it was over, I wouldn't just walk away with my money. I would walk away free. While they paid the price. The final act began the next morning. I kissed Anna goodbye like I always did, told her I'd be at the bank finalizing the transfer, and left the apartment without looking back. She waited exactly 45 minutes before making her move. My investigator, parked across the street, watched as she hurried out, phone pressed to her ear. She got into her car and drove straight to Mark's office. Inside, they moved fast. Mark logged into his laptop, accessing what he believed was the account where I had placed the money. Anna stood behind him, gripping his shoulder. My investigator recorded everything. The moment they tried to access the funds, the trap snapped shut. I was already at the police station, sitting across from a detective, handing over the evidence. The messages, the recordings, the financial logs showing how Anna had slowly funneled money into a hidden account even before the lottery win. And now, their final attempted fraud, conspiracy to commit theft, and most importantly, their plan to get rid of me. The detective nodded. They had enough. It was time. Anna was at home when they arrived. She opened the door, probably expecting to see me, expecting to play the doting wife for just a little longer. Instead, she found 2 officers standing there, warrant in hand. I wasn't there to see her face when they read her the charges. But I wish I had been. Mark was picked up an hour later. He tried to run. He didn't get far. When it was all over, I sat in my truck, gripping the wheel, breathing deep. 12 years. 12 years of my life, wasted on a woman who had never really loved me. But I was still standing. And I still had everything. Anna and Mark? They had nothing. They had gambled on my stupidity. And they lost. I never looked back. I never visited her in jail. Never answered her letters. Instead, I moved forward. A new life. A new home. And for the first time in years, peace. I had won. And they had gotten exactly what they deserved.